This is Season 2, Episode 35 of the Faith Over Breakfast podcast. Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. My name is Andy Littleton from Mission Church in Tucson, Arizona. I'm sitting across from my buddy Eric. Hello, Eric.
Hey.
Eric Deepen of the Village Church here in Tucson, Arizona as well. And we just had a conversation that we did not plan to have. We sat down with some topics and then had something about how, we ended up talking about how many people were showing up to church. And we decided to podcast on that. So you're gonna hear a little bit of our pain. You're gonna hear a little bit of our frustration, our reflections on our own problems in the midst of this as you get a little deeper in. So if you're thinking as one of our churchgoers, like, man, they really are just being critical. Hang on, we're gonna point it back at ourselves. Just hang on for that. It comes a little bit later.
and understand we're two pastors kind of laying it out raw. So. Yeah, I mean, you just get what you get when you listen to this podcast.
Laying it out raw. Okay.
Laying it out raw.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
It's good to be here. Sorry I was late.
That's okay.
I walked in, as you could see, it's not like I did get a pastry and a coffee.
You did get a pastry and a coffee.
And so
it is Faith Over Breakfast.
It's Faith Over Breakfast, and
which is an
needed
awesome
a little.
Thing, by the way.
Thank you.
You did a good job of coming up with that.
You know, it was kind of a thing where we went, what do we call it? We've been eating breakfast together. I don't know. It just happened. It just worked. Yeah, I needed something in my stomach. I'm a little attuned to my stomach. I got some food poisoning over the weekend.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was this food poisoning due to, like, eating at church or eating at a restaurant? Or
Panda Express.
Oh, yeah, don't go there.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
Yeah. So, it was...
we just threw one of our major advertisers under the bus. Right?
I know. Yeah, they were on the train. They were going to give us money, and now it's over. I know.
Well, we should come up with some advertisers and just make them up.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay.
Just lies.
So, Panda Express...
It's Abby's favorite.
Oh.
And I've been...
Orange chicken?
She gets orange chicken.
Yeah, that's what I did.
I did not. I probably should have. I would have been fine if I did.
What did you get? Like sushi?
I got teriyaki chicken.
Ah, yeah. Sometimes they don't fully cook that chicken.
Well, apparently that's what happened. Yeah, and it did hit me that as I was finishing it, I thought, it wasn't cold, but it wasn't piping hot.
Yeah.
So Saturday night I woke up and went, ah!
It was cold.
Yeah. And then Sunday I did end up preaching, but it was I contacted the intern John and said, John, you better be ready in case I can't make it. But I made it. I was
Your application was really short.
Yeah, it was a shorter sermon. It was. I was starting to get a little bit of a headache. Some dehydration and stuff was kicking in. Anyway, but so I kind of feel I had a lot of conversations with people afterward. And I hope I felt present because I did have my head was starting to bug me. But anyway, so I'm a little more attuned to. So I got coffee, but I thought I better get a little something in me. First thing in the morning. I don't know.
Gotcha.
So I was late.
Not a big deal. I was listening to our podcast.
I noticed that. That was really great.
It was a really good podcast. There was some things that I'm like, wow, I'd like to go back and flesh that out a little bit and talk about it. But one of the things we were talking about before the podcast, and we thought, well, man, we should be talking about this on air, is I asked you how big your church was because you guys, I don't know if this is public knowledge yet.
No, it isn't.
Okay, but there was a reason you might not be able to go to a morning service, let's say, or something like that. So I was like, well, how big is your church? Are you guys thinking about going to 2 services ever? And you're like,
not right
we got plenty of room to grow. Maybe we're 70 in attendance with 70, 80 with kids and everything. And so I was like,
You thought we had more people now.
I thought you were a little bit bigger, but you were talking about how you probably are, actually.
Yeah.
But you have really sparse attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a trend that what do you call them, church watchers and coaches.
Yeah.
They're talking about this in the younger generation. But people in general.
Previous generations, it would be, if you were I don't have hard data on this, but I would assume from my life and observations that in previous times, people, if they committed to going to a church, would go there unless they were like out of town, and they would not, and they would often even plan around making it to church. Right, that was a pretty vital piece of the puzzle for them.
Yeah, I mean, even one of the rituals when I was younger, it kind of changed as I got older. But I mean, every Sunday we had pot roast, and Mom prepped it.
Yeah,
and and that's why the service had to be a certain amount of time, because you had to get home with the people that you invited to get the pot roast out of the oven. Yeah, and so that was a very common practice.
Random question on that: if you went out of town as a Christian kid, did you go to church out of town when you were gone?
Well, it depends. If you did like a summer vacation where you're going to spend like a month somewhere, which my dad, because he was a teacher, we did. Yes. Yeah. Then we would go, but not if it's a week or two. No.
We would. We sometimes did. It was actually I would say, typically we would go to church wherever we went. We still went to church on Sunday.
Right. Much to my kids' chagrin, I love going to church on vacation. It's one of my most favorite things, and they just roll their eyes because they don't want to sit in a service. They don't know anybody, and everything feels foreign to them. And
I love to. I mean, it just feels right to go to church, and to worship, and just to. And I love the chance to go somewhere where I'm not the pastor and just get to be on the receiving end. So great.
Right.
And and then I just like to check out what other churches are doing. That's also there. Yeah.
So we were chatting about the sparse attendance, and I've noticed that in our community at times where people don't prioritize church.
Yeah.
Gathering of people.
Yeah, like if somebody invites them over for dinner.
Right, or there's some other event or there's any number of reasons.
Right.
Why do you think there's been this change in the last 30, 40 years? Because there has been. I mean, people have been observing that this is different. Where people think that they belong to church, but the average attendance, instead of being, 3 times a month, has dropped to 2 times a month.
Yeah. Well, I bet there's a bunch of factors. I think the cultural consensus used to be that church going or worshiping was the thing to do. And so I think that I bet that when our parents were growing up in the States, the amount of events planned during worship in general were just less. I think people just didn't do it. I think that more folks went to church, and even if you didn't, you still sort of thought you should or other people should. Right. So I bet that's a factor.
So you think number one factor, not number one on the list,
the first one I'm throwing out
is this idea that people didn't plan things on Sundays.
Yeah.
And now they do.
And right.
Do you think that's a shift too in that, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, everything was closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
Now I'm shocked if something's closed on Sunday.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A is still blowing people's minds.
Yeah, which, by the way, I just saw a stat. This popped up on my little phone.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't verify it, but the stat was that Chick-fil-A makes more money than McDonald's and 2 other fast food places combined. Mm. And they're still
closed on Sunday.
On any given day.
Yeah.
Per store.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Chicken. It's good chicken.
I like the chicken. I'll be going there later today.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Kind of an addict.
I'm sorry.
So number one reason is Chick-fil-A. Okay, number 2 reason.
No, Chick-fil-A is the only reason anybody is still going to church. Because people that like Chick-fil-A go, oh, shucks, I guess I'm going to
go to church. So this makes a cultural shift in how we understand Sunday altogether.
Yeah. Or just any kind of, Sunday, Lord's Day, however you want to put it. Yeah. Yep. I think that's a huge part. And then, you had mentioned theology.
Yeah, and I wanted to play that out.
Yeah, and I do think that's a huge part. Like the people of God in Israel, they would not miss worship. They would not miss their Sabbath. It's a creation ordinance. It is, they just wouldn't miss it. They would observe it. If they were gone, they would observe it somehow, right?
Right.
And theologically, that carries, I would say, into the New Testament. It doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't.
But I think we are very weak on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, myself included, frankly.
I think maybe we're very weak on it, probably because you and I are products of this culture,
yeah.
And maybe even products of the disappointment. Because I think the third reason would be that my generation and yours, and we're kind of merged together, is that we were disappointed in church because it felt like it had lost its substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't feel like it really was vital.
Right, and it didn't feel like it was a place where we could engage in transformation in our own life, invite people into transformation. Like, it was more about the process of the procedures and the things that were happening than Jesus. It was always 3 points and a helpful thing to do.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things were hard for me to deal with, and I think for my generation. So we started leaving the church but doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Which kind of led to this whole weird theology where we talk about we're doing kingdom work, but we don't go to church. That kind of idea.
And the kingdom work can be what anybody else would do.
Sure, Gandhi work.
Yeah. Well, if
whatever,
that,
right, or whatever, or if that.
Now with all and I'm actually very pro the vocational discussion, vocational ministry, but kingdom work. Anybody can be like, I love making craft beer, and
yes.
So I'm doing kingdom. I'm building the kingdom all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I think what we've lost theologically is the idea that we are the people of God. To go back down to what you were saying.
Yeah.
That we are the visible representation of that.
Right.
And when we gather, there's a power to that because you get to see the kingdom gathered around you. You get to see it. It's full. If at your church mission, and I think the village, where there's at least some kind of liturgical rhythm within the service where you get to see repentance and you get to see restoration and praise and proclamation all happening and participating in those things. That's powerful. I don't want to miss that. I think that's the things. I don't want to miss those things because they're healing to my life. Like, they bring me closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
And so why, man, I don't want to lose that. I'm not looking for the high. I'm just looking for the experience of being with God's people in a powerful way.
Yeah, I want to be reoriented to the gospel. I mean, and I'm even thinking about the church service all throughout the week, but I feel like it only takes about 7 days. If not just one day to quit thinking in terms of the gospel, of what I'm called to do, and who I am in Christ, and who Christ even is, and the power of this story and the power of the resurrection. I get out, and I have the fortunate, I think, advantage of working in a secular job as well. I essentially have a sales position at my own company where I sell furniture to customers, and I start thinking about how much money, is coming into the bank and how we are doing as a business. And that very quickly takes over.
Yes.
And doesn't, and there are kingdom reasons to think about that stuff, but I forget them.
Yeah.
And for me coming back to church and hearing the story and rehearsing it together. Going to churches, I don't get excited and jump up and down. It's just, for me, it's just remind me of what this is about.
Sure.
Jesus, just bring me back, keep me here. And I need it. Yeah, I need it. I sort of miss the days when there was a Wednesday thing.
I don't miss that.
We have small groups that kind of is like that, I guess.
Right.
But,
yeah. I would much rather be with them than
well, yeah.
Service. But yes, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, just the regularity.
Yeah, the rhythm.
Yeah, the rhythm of it all.
That makes sense.
And I think there is a theology, a belief, a practice that the Bible suggests that lends to all that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So have you really gone after that with your folks?
Well, I don't really, honestly, other than having this discussion with you, and a little bit in a letter that hasn't gone out yet, of just talking about the struggles of two services.
Yeah.
And that process. No, because I don't know. I think the process is trying to help people understand the value of the kingdom of God in the sense of when it comes to his visible people, the church, and what the church is doing.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people doing work on this, trying to make this more clear to people, because we do have these two divergent groups. One, and I guess it has a lot to do with how we understand the kingdom of God and how we understand the church. And so some people see it right now as more good works that we're doing in the world,
right,
and kind of living a full life, right? Like you were talking about the beer, like making really good beer is the kingdom of God. And then the other side is saying, well, no, it's about this. It's about the present and the not yet, and the atoning act of God, and then the soteriology, the salvation of people. That's the kingdom of God, like, you know, and so we've kind of lost the church in its practices and how it brings those two things together. And
do you think your folks are they even thinking about those categories though? Like that's almost sounds like what the academics are talking about.
Well, I think we are in present just because we started going through kind of Jesus's offices and how we are just like to imitate those. We're called to imitate those, but I don't think it's not anything that we've been thinking about outside of that. No.
Yeah. Because I would assume our people aren't, you know, sitting there thinking, am I going to go to church this week? And, well, you know, how do I view the kingdom as a... You know, I think they're just thinking, my friends are in town, no. You know, and it's just that quick. It's just like, well, obviously. Or like, you know, I got great tickets, so no. Right. Or it's super nice out, so no. You know, because... You know, when else are we going to get up the mountain? Or whatever the case. Or I would honestly say, I'm sad, so no. Or I don't want to talk about what's going on in my life, so no. All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of reasons to struggle with it. And I mean, I think some people in my community would say, well, they have a lot of social anxiety. Yeah. So being present with a lot of people is already a chore in itself.
Yeah. I'm exhausted from. I had a lot of that this week, and
right. Well, I mean, I think it's complicated. I don't know if you can go in and modify people's behavior. I think what you have to do, and what we should be doing, is talking about the theology of church and what it is and why it's important and what it does in the world when we gather, for both us and for, you know, for the war that we're at with the spiritual world. Like, our armor is only well fitted when we come together, and I think that's a.
So you talk about that at church, and the people aren't there.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the cool thing about podcasts, and and sermons online. I think that's changing things too.
And some people obviously work. That's another factor of. I mean, plans, but it used to be that your work would not expect you to work on a Sunday, and now, especially with remote work, if it goes over, you know, you just got to get it all done. You got to get it done. Right. It feels like you can't take a break. I mean, I would want to push against that. Like, if you feel like you're too busy to worship, you know, maybe you don't realize the power of worship, like what it could do to your productivity the rest of the week.
Right.
For example. But, yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing is we've moved, and here's a big one, I think. I don't think church used to be a commodity.
Right.
But in the 70s the seeker-sensitive movement, it became a commodity, and so it became something you consume. So it became something that you actually judge.
Right.
So you come and you
think, is it worth my time?
Yeah, Andy's okay as a speaker, but do I really want to hear him?
Right.
Well, the music's okay. Like you're rating.
Do I get enough out of it? Is there enough bang for the buck? Do I get enough return for my investment?
Right.
Yeah.
And so even the people who are trying to create the space feel this pressure to create a commodity.
Oh gosh, I feel that.
Right. And so all of a sudden it's not about bringing God's people together. Right. It's about you performing.
Yeah. Like what if our sermons aren't very good for a couple weeks, and what if the music's just sort of B-?
Yeah.
Like if the people are going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sad as a leader. It's just a sad feeling to feel like if this isn't on par. And I don't feel that.
No.
Like, I don't think everybody's there, but I do think about it in relation to like certain folks and especially when I think about bringing new people in or them staying, which I wish I didn't feel that way.
Yeah, and I think that's the big issue.
I
don't feel that way for the most part about people at our church, but I do feel that way.
Well, but you start wondering when people don't, when people are there once a month or something, you go, so do they see this as vital? Because they see other opportunities are coming up, like whether it's time with family or time with friends or events or work,
right?
And that is vital.
Right.
So the question is, what is the most vital thing in your life? And it's like worshiping with God's people seems to be low on the list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of being downers, because we're down, I don't want to be a downer about all this.
Right.
So why is church so compelling? Like, what is it that, why are you and I so excited about church and like it and think that it's vital to transformation of this world and to individuals?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the one piece that I've had to remind myself of over the years, and that's that I have a what I consider a specific calling from God to lead His church. So I am very bought in, and I've staked a lot of my time into investing in this. And so I know this is not the spiritual, meaningful answer, but practically I am very...
You're bought in.
Bought in. Yeah. So, it's hard for me because sometimes I realize, like, I want others to feel that way, but then I think they must not. Like, they don't think about it throughout the week. And I wish they did. And I wish I were better at spreading it to where everybody was like, I am vitally involved, and I need to be there.
Right.
And I want to be there. Yeah. So that's just maybe a more practical side of things. But then, I think you and I we were raised with some assumptions here. I think we have to see, like, my family, we were faithful churchgoers. We believed that we needed it. We believed it was true. We believed that it was of high importance.
Right.
It's been kind of a little bit confusing to me to watch my mom in her older years not go to church. She watches it on TV right now. Because when we were younger, she wasn't. I think she's kind of lost.
Mm.
Like, I think she's gone a little consumer because now she can just watch it. I wonder what the fact that I can listen to an amazing sermon any moment of the day that I want to online, I wonder what that's done, but I think that's affected my own mom. But I grew up where we were going, like,
right.
And I think there was a theology behind that, though we hadn't articulated it. I think we saw the gathering with God's people as where you heard from God.
Mm-hmm. And
so if you didn't go, you weren't gonna hear from God.
Right.
God speaks in His church, and I think we saw it as a time of reflection on our lives, and I think we saw it as a time where we'd be encouraged back out into the world, send out on whatever we were supposed to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I have to acknowledge that I grew up in church, and I do, and I loved church.
Yeah.
Even from I like old churches. I like the smells of the pews. I love sort of the symbol that it represents. I like the variety. I like all the architecture. I like all those different kinds of things. But in the end, like for me, it's where I've tasted Jesus at its deepest.
Yeah.
And in a most consistent way.
Right.
There may have been other moments on a mountain, other moments in a a study with one or two people where it was really like the presence of God was heavy in those things.
Yeah.
But for the most part, consistently, God has been present in my life in the convicting of sin and in the inspiring to go out and offer the gospel to the world at church.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, is that I kind of sit on, Hebrews 10, 24, and 25. And 25 is that we should not give up the meeting together. And even more as we see the day coming. Right. Well, the day is coming. Every day you get up, it's closer. And so we shouldn't give it up. And that pattern of giving things, the meeting together was happening in the first century.
Yeah.
So this is not a problem that's new.
It's not a completely new thing.
Right, because it's
changed again.
Because people are hard to be around. And that's the thing that's surprising. I mean, we don't
that's a thing.
Honor when people don't come, is that you have to be around a lot of broken people.
Yeah.
You have to experience feeling judged. You have to experience maybe somebody not really caring what you have to say.
Right.
Or talking all the time, or not offering Jesus.
Right.
Right. And Hebrews 10:24 says that we're supposed to irritate one another, or spur one another on towards love and good deeds. So there's even the transformational part can be uncomfortable, because Jesus is uncomfortable and his people are uncomfortable for different reasons.
Do you think that the whole the consuming of church has? I mean, do you think that happens with the community as well? Like, we want to consume a really nice community.
Yes.
And what Jesus gathers is just an actual family that's a mess.
Yes.
And it's hard, because I hear this stuff all the time, I came and, you guys were nice, but nobody really asked about X, Y, and Z, or somebody goes, I come and I'm going through hard times and nobody noticed or something.
Sure.
And that's, you're always super sad about it. And I take that stuff pretty hard. But then there's a part of me that goes, but that isn't why we come to worship. Ultimately, we all come to worship. Right? And
to remove our eyes from ourselves and put them on Jesus.
And then
author and perfecter of our faith.
The author and perfecter of our faith. And then how great is it when after worship a fellow worshiper says, "Are you okay?" Right? That beautiful and deep wonderful and deep and meaningful, and I want it. But at the same time, I think that the consumer piece that we've added is we want to come and just get all the care and everything that you would get at a counseling session, perhaps, right there by showing up at worship.
Right.
And I don't think that expectation has always been there.
No.
Right? Biblically, when you came into the temple to worship, that part isn't really there. That was supposed to happen all week.
Right. I think the early church changed things.
And they were sitting around the table and caring for each other in deep ways.
Yeah, Paul certainly is full of ways for us to engage one another with depth and meaning.
But I still am not convinced that the ways the early church did that were in that moment where they gathered together for the reading of the word and a hymn.
Yes.
And that it was when you showed up for that.
Yeah, you mean what happens on Sunday?
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Their lives are very intertwined.
Yes. And you look at James and you get a sense that things are kind of going haywire.
Yeah.
And, and so there's a lot of, people are people. It's messy.
Yeah. Big time.
But I think the argument for church, though, is that it's transformational.
Yeah.
That the brokenness I have does find healing, but it doesn't find the healing because Andy speaks really well or touches a deep part of me afterwards.
Right.
Though that's part of the church, and that's how the Spirit works.
I'm not trying to minimize that.
No, we shouldn't.
But I'm just saying, I think it's become another piece of the commodity that if I don't get that, then this has not been worthwhile.
Yeah, I think there's a group of people who are seeking a particular kind of community. I also think there's a group of people who are seeking a particular kind of experience.
Yeah.
And those two people make up a major portion of people looking for church who are followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like when you're not a follower of Jesus, I think in this culture you don't even know what church looks like. Going to church is kind of terrifying.
Oh, it'd be freaking terrifying. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think that's. And I always think it's interesting to me because I think we set church up as the place we're supposed to invite your friends.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a sense, even in if you were thinking, let's go back to the first century and you want to go back to Acts 2, people are gathering all the time. And so they're adding to their numbers. So people are just hanging out at people's homes.
Right.
And then they're going and worshiping in the temple. I don't think everyone's saying, hey, let's go worship at the temple. They're saying, hey, let's go listen to Peter at his house talk. Or let's go have dinner together. Like, why don't you come hang out with me?
And I think there was a general interest among the Jewish people, at least, at that time of, who is the Messiah and what is this new thing. And so, today, that is not the question that people are asking.
No, it's not.
Yeah. And so, though I would love to see what happened there happen, I would expect it would happen and things would happen differently now.
Right.
Yeah. I have a feeling that, my sense is that people got very excited about individualism, about all the opportunities in a very tolerant world, and that those are crashing down, and that it's not working, and that there's more conflict, and it's a mess.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people just going, then what can we do? What can we believe in? I think that's the question where people might gather to listen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we really clarify anything about church. I mean,
well, I mean, I just wish. I mean, maybe that's just what I would say is I just wish it were a top tier value to be with God, reorienting to His story with His people.
Right. So okay,
I just
totally agree with you.
I want that for our folks.
That's a really powerful line. But before we end, I would want that question answered. Because if I were listening, I'd say, okay, but Andy, like, what are you doing wrong?
Yeah.
That's creating an environment like that. That's a great question. Why are people not being like, Andy thinks this is so important?
Right.
And there are a group of people who do think Andy thinks it's that important, and they're there.
And some of them aren't, and they just don't want to talk to you.
Right. But like, I mean, and maybe it cannot just be Andy, but as a church leader, it's like, how are we not communicating?
It's not just me.
Yeah, it's totally not you.
Yeah, no, I did, actually, that crossed my mind a little earlier. Like, I don't think it's just the people. I think there are ways in which we could make it more vital, right?
Right.
And, yeah, I think that one piece is I want to see more people. I want to see more people in our community kind of showing their cards. Like I want there to be a sense that there's going to be more meaningful sharing from other people other than just whoever's leading music and whoever's preaching.
Yeah.
For instance, I got coffee with one of the guys from our church, and I knew some stuff about his life, but he was sharing some stuff about his life and his journey with God, and I was going, this is amazing. Like, this is really interesting, and just hearing it from his own mouth versus hearing it from somebody else. I thought, I want more people to hear about this. I really want, and I want stories of kingdom victories, to be heard, and I want, I want that kind of stuff to be more there. And I think what happens is and one of the upsides that we have is we're all bivocational, so we're connected in the community.
Right.
The downside to that is the coordination of getting more people involved feels just daunting.
Yes.
And so, but I think that investment would would be well worth it, because I think that would start feeling more. It would feel like I'm going to get some more than just a sermon and a song. And then I also, I don't know, give ooh, just punch the mic. Give me one of yours. I don't know. That's one that comes to mind for me.
No, that's good. So what you're saying is more stories, more voices, people feeling like the God is working, seeing God working, hearing about it, and seeing the transformation that's happening in the community.
One of the things I've liked about your like healing chair or sinner's chair is that stuff like repentance or a deep need is a public moment.
Yes.
For us, it's a private one. I think like our confession is quiet, and the deep need, you might come and ask for prayer later.
Right.
And maybe that, like, we're not seeing those things, seeing what God's doing in those areas. Just a thought I'm having right now.
Right.
But for you, and that's probably a lot messier in your church as well, right?
It can be messy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking when you were talking, I was like, yeah, there was a big transition in our church when I started being paid full time instead of working part time.
Yeah.
That was having, a foot in two different places. And when Rod moved from having a foot in two different places.
Yeah.
That was huge in just the connectedness of our community.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I was thinking about when you were talking. But I think the thing that I don't do well is that I don't tell people, hey, it's important to me because in my growth and in my understanding of God, for you to be present.
Yeah.
And I don't.
I feel bad talking about it.
Yeah. It was, and I've moved a little bit more that direction, but man, it's been a hard evolution to have my own need present and my own desire present in front of my congregation when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
Of just saying, hey, no, this is really important to me that you be here.
Yeah.
It's an encouragement for you to be here to me.
Yeah.
That I need you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said before that, but I haven't said it for me, but I've said when you're not here, and this isn't a sermon, the church isn't the same at each and every one of you. But it's true, and actually I feel it in a big way, even just up, like when I'm preaching, like I love to see the people that I love there.
Yeah.
And there's just and every single face that's gone, it's just not the same.
Right.
And then the same thing happens when everybody's milling around together at the end when there's 20 less of us. It's just not your gift, your strength isn't there.
Right.
And it's just not the same. Yeah. But I've always said that like on behalf of the whole church, not just me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a big part of just putting it out there, risking is and also, I think the other one is maybe I don't communicate how excited I am about being there.
Yeah.
Because I'm feeling the pressures of, oh, this thing didn't get photocopied. They need it. And, whoa, the amps went down and we don't know why the internet's down. Oh, it's just a breaker. We got to go.
Right.
Like there's
you're
these
so
things.
caught up in the stinking operations that you're not enjoying it, right? Like enjoying the gathering, or that can happen.
Sometimes, I'm telling I don't feel excited, so I'm not going to act excited because I'm authentic. Well, you know what? Who cares? Like, I should act excited because we're in the presence of God. We're gathered. We're making a statement, and I think it's really easy for me to forget the power of God's gathered people, because when we gather in His name, when we agree, He's present, and there's a power about that nothing can match that.
Can you think of, I can think of many days where I have been thinking about church, going, and I go, nah, I'm just not feeling it right now, you know? And then I go, and then afterward, I'm like, I can't think of one time at the end where I've gone, I should have stayed home.
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Totally bad.
Yeah. In fact, I would almost venture to say the times I've most not wanted to go or had the best reason not to go and went have been some of the best times.
Yes. And I don't have to say that that's true for me, but I definitely have talked to some villagers who are like, I wish I hadn't come to this.
Yeah. So
No,
it's not universally
It's not a universal experience.
Sure.
But when you're open to the Holy Spirit,
yeah,
there's a transformation. When you're in agreement with the people, when you're saying, I'm not going to agree with these people, I'm not going to be present with these people, even though I'm here.
When you come predetermined to have a terrible time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's that. Yeah. No, I maybe it's just because I love church and I should be more excited about it. I should be more communicative about how awesome it is to me and how much I love it being around Jesus and his people.
Yeah. I mean, because we believe this is the day where we begin our week on the most important thing and the most beautiful thing, and we orient ourselves to the true and most beautiful story. Right. Yeah.
Well, I think the worst Sunday, the worst Sunday we've ever had is better than Endgame packed out. Yeah. It blows it away.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, we watched the last game of the playoffs, NBA playoffs.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And interestingly, I'm going to be at this Mission Network developer gathering, and while in Oakland, and games 3 and 4 of the finals are going to be going on while we're there.
Oh, wow.
Which is, could be pretty wild because, anyway. But, I was thinking, I do like basketball. I don't want to down on sports right now. But you just see thousands of people in the streets jumping up and down, all decked out in their gear for something completely meaningless.
Right. It's the temples and religion of our time. Yes.
It is, but just think about it. Like, these are just guys throwing an inflated ball through a hoop.
Very well.
Very accurately.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
But this is like, we would die. We pay thousands to go. We would, brave the cold if we're sick. If you had the flu, but you had tickets to the finals,
I'd be there.
You'd go, right?
Well, if it's like I went to the championship game of the NCAA. Yeah. Would not go again if I had a flu, unless I had floor tickets, because it's not worth it. But I hear what you're saying. Yes.
Right. Like, what could stop you? Your friends in town. You're like, I'm sorry. Like, I got the tickets. Yeah. And I wish that all of us, including myself, just gave a rip about the kingdom.
Yes.
Because it feels like we don't in comparison.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Yeah. There's something to think through.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Now that I went negative again, I'm just saying we have time, and we have a bank of excitement. Yeah. We're just aiming it all over the place.
Yeah.
Things that don't matter.
Right. And man, this has been an interesting podcast.
There you go.
This was not what we planned on talking
No,
about.
not at all. Actually, not at all. They came up right before. Kind of fun.
Yeah, it was good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
You have to introduce, because I introduced last time.
What's the episode?
No, you have to say, this is season 2, episode 35 of Faith Over Breakfast podcast.